Okay, so by now you should have an idea of what your book is going to look like because you found the positives of your competitors, you found the negatives, you looked at their chapter titles, so you know what you're going to talk about in your book. You looked at the sub-chapters, so you know exactly what you're going to talk about in your book. All that's left now is to take all of these and put them in an outline. Why do you need an outline? Well, guess what? I'm pretty sure you're not going to write your book. You're not going to write it, are you? You're not a writer. I'm not a writer. I don't even write my books. So what are we going to do? We're going to take this outline and give it to a ghostwriter, because guess what ghostwriters know exactly how to do? Write books. But it's not enough just to take these 4 things and put them in an outline and send it to your ghostwriter. You need to create the correct outline before you give it to your ghostwriter, because the better you can make your outline, the better the result that the ghostwriter can give you. And remember, we want quality. Quality over everything. We want a good book. So how do you make a really, really good outline? I'm going to show you how to do that now. First of all, your outline needs to specify all the chapters. Now, I usually have around 7 to 10 chapters in my book. You can go higher, you can go lower. It all depends on your book and your niche and everything else. But you know what chapters to use because you saw what your competitors are doing and you can see the chapters they use. Or if you order their books, you can read their book and see what they're talking about and how they structured their chapters. So I just open up a Word document and I start writing the chapters. And under each chapter, I'll have a few bullet points that I want the ghostwriter to understand what I want to talk about specifically in that chapter. So if I was making a book for mechanics, let's say, one of the chapters might be all about the engine. And then I want to tell the ghostwriter, I want this chapter to be about the engine. And I want you to talk about how the pistons work and how fuel works, how the fuel burns or whatever. I don't know how engines work. But you're just going to specify everything that you want the ghostwriter to talk about in this chapter. The ghostwriter can go out and do their own research to find information to put in here. But if you do the research first, then you make that so much easier for the ghostwriter. So you're going to open up your Word document, write down all your chapters, and write down all the little bullet points that you want the ghostwriter to talk about for each chapter. So that's the first thing you want to do. What's the second thing you want to do? We'll write number 1 here. Second thing you want to specify in your outline is your target audience. Why do you need to specify your target audience? Because if your target audience are kids or adults or seniors, what is the writing style that your ghostwriter needs to have in order to write for kids? Well, you need to specify that writing style, which is simple, fun, maybe energetic, because kids are not going to sit there and read boring books. They want nice, simple, short sentences, straight to the point. You can even talk about the grade level. So if it's grade level 5, then you know that it's super, super easy to read. So you want to tell the ghostwriter what to write about and who they're writing it for. Because if you tell them who to write it for, then they know how to write it, what writing style to write it in. If it's for seniors, they might still want some simple words. They might want to make it short and snappy because a lot of seniors have dementia or whatever. Maybe they forget what they read. And for adults, you might, depending on your niche, you might want it super professionally done. So it's like as if you're in school or something like that. I don't like to write boring books, but for some niches, you might have to write it a little bit sophisticated or things like that. So you need to tell your ghostwriter about your target audience because that's going to allow you and the ghostwriter to figure out the writing style. You can also talk to them about tone of voice. So do you want it energetic and fun, or do you want it professional and sophisticated and proper? Well, I don't even know what the words are, but I hope you understand what I mean. If I'm writing a dinosaur book for kids, I'm not going to use large, overcomplicated words because kids don't even understand that. But what I am going to do is use short, fun words. I want to make it energetic. I want to say, wow, look at this dinosaur and things like that. But I'm not going to do that for an adult's book. So you need to specify to your ghostwriter exactly how you want them to write it, the tone of voice. Another thing you can talk to them about is the perspective or the view. I'm not quite sure what the word is. Is it in first person? Is it in third person? Is there a narrator? These are all the different things you need to think about. Are you talking to them as if it's just a one-on-one? Or are you talking to them as if you're talking to a lot of people? You need to think about exactly how you want the ghostwriter to write your book. Now, the final thing that you need to let your ghostwriter know is your word count. So how many words is your book going to be? You might need 15,000 words if it's a cookbook, because most of your book is full of images and illustrations. If it's all black and white, you might need 30,000 words, because 30,000 words is around 120 pages or 150, depending again if you have illustrations and everything like that. So the word count is completely dependent on the book that you're making. Now, hopefully I didn't miss out on anything, but if you're writing your outline and you think to yourself, oh, if I say this thing to the ghostwriter, or if I include this thing, then that will be super helpful. If you can find anything helpful that's going to help your ghostwriter write a better book, add it to your outline. Even if it's something small, even if it's something big, your ghostwriter didn't study your competitors like you did. You know more about your niche than your ghostwriter. So the better you can make your outline, the better the final book is going to be. The easier of a job you make it for the ghostwriter, the better the quality that's going to come out. And if the quality is really good, your book is much easier to make successful. Now, for some books, you might have to include illustrations. That's going to be a different outline that you're going to have to send to your illustrator. You're going to go through and see where you need illustrations, what illustrations you need, and then you can write an outline saying, describing the type of illustration that you need and what you want it to show. And then you can send that outline to your illustrator. Now, there's one final thing about your book outline, and it's the most important thing that you need to do. If you do this thing, your chances of success increase exponentially. What I'm going to tell you now is one of the most important factors between you becoming an authority figure and people picking your book over your competitors. You ready? It's all about your unique selling point. What's the unique selling point? Unique selling point is your USP, which simply means what's different about your book than your competitor's book. You need to have one thing that's different from your book, that makes your book different. So when someone goes and looks at your competitors and they see, oh, every book is the same, pow, your book comes out of nowhere and they think, oh, this is a little bit different. And then they buy because you have that extra little thing different. But the most important part is that your USP can't just be anything random. Your USP needs to be value-based. So it's all about value. And how do you find a value-based USP? Well, depending on the type of book you're making, you can have more of something or you can have less of something. What do I mean by this? Well, if you're making a cookbook, you're going to have more recipes than your competitors. If they have 50, 60, 70, 100, you're going to have 150, 200. So you have more value. You have more recipes, more value. If you're making a bunch of short stories for boys or whatever, you're going to have more stories. If it's difficult for you to think of something that you can add more value to, you can just have more pages, which makes your book automatically seem more valuable. Maybe you can have more illustration or better illustrations, more fun illustrations, more descriptive illustrations. Maybe you can have more information. So I remember one of my clients was selling an Excel book and they had a Microsoft Office book. And while everyone else was just teaching the 5 basic Microsoft Office apps like Word and PowerPoint and Excel, he was teaching 11 different apps. So he had a lot more information and a lot more pages, which gave it a lot more value. And do you think he succeeded? Yes, he did. You can even have more variety. What do I mean by this? If someone's selling a meat cookbook or a steak cookbook, maybe you have a larger variety of recipes. Now you're going to have to convey this later on in your title and your marketing and everything. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. But for now, just try and think of something that you can make that will make your book more valuable. A simple USP, which is value-based. Now, you don't just have to have more. If you can't think of something that you can have more, you can actually have less. What do I mean by this? If you have a recipe book, you can have less ingredients. So you can make the same recipes with less ingredients. You can have less time. So it takes you less time to learn or less time to implement. So learn how to draw in 30 days instead of just learn how to draw. Or drawing for 10 minutes, like learn how to draw a human in 10 minutes. Learn how to draw anything in 10 minutes. Everything is time-based. The shorter the amount of time, the more valuable the book is. You can have less steps. So learn how to draw in 5 steps or less, while everyone else has 15, 20 steps. Now, this is not just about drawing books, it's about everything. Depending on your niche, you're going to figure out if steps applies to you or not. You can make it seem like you need less work. So one of the highest selling books on Amazon is a book about how to raise a baby. And the title of the book is The Simplest Baby. So I can't remember, but I think it's the simplest baby book. It will pop up on your screen right now so you can see it. Simplest, just the word simplest basically means every other book in that niche is hard and it's complicated and it's time consuming. But just the word simplest gives that book so much more value. Why? Because it's saying you're going to need less work to read it, less work to implement. It's going to be so simple for you to understand. So less work can be a good USP. It can also be less cost. Now this, I'm not on about the price of your book on Amazon. I'm on about the price of what's needed to do what your book is telling them to do. So maybe it can be a cookbook for college students and it will be 50 recipes you can make for $10 or less. That is a very valuable USP because college students are usually broke. So if you tell them you're going to show them 50 recipes that you can make $10 or less, sounds pretty good to me. So you can have a USP with a lot more things in or a lot less things in. For this point, you need to sit and think about your book. Think about your competitors. You've done the research, so you know what's out there. If you just sit and brainstorm, you're going to figure out a lot of different USPs that you can have. You just have to constantly ask yourself, how do I make my book more valuable? What does the customer want that I can give them? How can I make it the most valuable book in the niche. What's another problem I can solve with this book? It's all about the customer. If you can figure out what the customer is lacking or what they're missing, you can figure out a good USP. And if you have a good USP, so much easier to make money on Amazon, so much easier. Now, once you have your USP, you can implement this in your outline and you can let the writer know that your USP is very important, that, I don't know, that the recipes have 5 ingredients or less. So when you're doing your research, or if you pay a VA to do the research, or if your writer's doing the research, it's very important you let them know all the recipes have to be 5 steps or less. Or maybe you have a book, 5 steps, 5 minutes. That'll be a good catchy title where every recipe, 5 ingredients or less, and they all take 5 minutes or less to make. Sounds like a pretty good book to me. 5 ingredients, 5 steps, 5 minutes. The 5 steps, 5 minute cookbook. Might make one, see.